The road to Emmaus, taken from Luke chapter 24 in the Message Bible. That same day, two of them were walking to the village of Emmaus, about 7 miles out of Jerusalem. They were deep in conversation, going over all these things that had happened. In the middle of their talk and questions, Jesus came up and walked along with them, but they were not able to recognize who he was. He asked, "What's this you're discussing so intently as you walk along?" They just stood there long-faced, like they had lost their best friend. Then one of them, his name was Cleopas, said,
"Are you the only one in Jerusalem who hasn't heard what's happening during the last few days?"
He said, "What has happened?" They said,
"The things that happened to Jesus, the Nazarene. He was a man of God, a prophet, dynamic in work and word, blessed by both God and all the people. Then our high priests and leaders betrayed him and got him sentenced to death and crucified him. And we had our hopes up that he was the one about to deliver Israel. And it is now the 3rd day since it happened, but now some of our women have completely confused us. Early this morning, they were at the tomb and couldn't find his body. They came back with the story that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Some of our friends went off to the tomb to check and found it empty, just as the woman said, but they didn't see Jesus."
Then Jesus said to them, "So thick-headed, so slow-hearted. Why can't you simply believe all that the prophets said? Don't you see that these things had to happen, that the Messiah had to suffer and only then enter into his glory?" Then he started at the beginning with the books of Moses and went on through all the prophets, pointing out everything in the scriptures that referred to him. They came to the edge of the village where they were headed. He acted as if he were going to go on, but they pressed him.
"Stay and have supper with us. It's nearly evening. The day is done."
So he went in with them, and here's what happened. He sat down at the table with them. Taking the bread, he blessed and broke and gave it to them. At that moment, open-eyed, wide-eyed, they recognized him. And then he disappeared. Back and forth they talked.
Didn't we feel on fire as he conversed with us on the road, and he opened up the scriptures for us?"
They didn't waste a minute. They went up and were on their way back to Jerusalem. Well, I'm Jeremy, and that was my son Jack helping me with this reading about the road to Emmaus. And I think there were 2 things I find intriguing about the story. The first is it tells us of the greatest sermon never recorded. It tells us that Jesus told them all the things in the scripture concerning himself. How wonderful that would have been. So many questions would have been answered if only we'd known what Jesus had said. So many disputes maybe wouldn't have happened. But such is life. We don't know what Jesus said. But the second thing I find interesting is that these 2 travellers didn't recognise Jesus. They obviously knew who Jesus was, but they didn't recognise him. Now, Emmaus was about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and Jesus joined them into the walk, so they'd been together for about an hour and a half. Yet they didn't click that their mysterious companion was Christ. Why? There have been many reasons suggested, but maybe it was because they simply weren't looking for him. And because they didn't look, they didn't see. Their minds were elsewhere of the tragic and confusing events of the preceding days. As far as they were concerned, Jesus was dead and buried, and so whoever this stranger was, it wasn't him. That is a trap that we too can fall into in these weird and strange times in which we find ourselves living. Like the two travellers in the story, we have much to occupy our minds at the moment. And maybe we don't have the time or the energy to look for God. And then there are those who, when they do think of God, do so only in a negative way. Where was he when this happened? Why didn't he stop that happening? Why has he allowed this pandemic at all? If you think like that, though, the danger is you will miss seeing God at work all around you. Yes, every death is a tragedy. But through our healing God, for everyone who sadly dies, thousands of others are experiencing the miracle of healing and being restored to health through the hard work and skill of the medical staff. Our comforting God is bringing support, hope and comfort to those who are bereaved, ill, caring for the sick, lonely or separated from loved ones. Our compassionate, loving God is apparent in the countless acts of kindness that are taking place as people shield the vulnerable, deliver food or medicine, or just take time to ring the lonely. And our Creator God is hard at work as the flowers start to bloom, the buds come out, the days get warmer, the nights get shorter, and if we were allowed into the countryside, we'd see the lambs in the field. Moreover, by not looking for God, people are denying themselves the opportunity for him to work through them, the chance to be his hands, his feet and his messenger in these difficult days. It is so easy to miss God in the chaos and turmoil of our upside down lives. What I'm saying to you today is please look for him. Maybe what about at bedtime? Think if you can recall 3 times during the day when you saw God at work. Perhaps it was an act of kindness or a phone call or a smile or even just a butterfly flapping past. Let's not be like those 2 travellers and in all our worry and distraction fail to notice that God is right next to us and walking with us.